The year my parents died in a car accident, I had just started my senior year of high school. My relatives began circling like vultures. Their eyes weren't on me, but on the inheritance and compensation money my parents had left behind. They came knocking one after another, smiling with fake concern, sniffing around our house like they could already smell the cash. They thought a teenage boy couldn't possibly guard a fortune on his own. Eventually, I couldn't take it anymore. One rainy evening, I stood in front of the door next to ours, the one that belonged to the tattooed guy with the sharp jawline and broad shoulders who always wore a tank top no matter the weather. I'd seen the snake ink coiled on his left arm more than once. My classmates said he looked like the kind of guy you'd cross the street to avoid. I hesitated for only a moment before lifting my hand and knocking. The door creaked open, revealing him in low light, towering and impassive. I tilted my head up, heartbeat thudding. "Bro," I asked, "are you in the mob? Welcome to History Channel. Subscribe to follow all our latest adventures." Story begins. After the accident, my father died on the way to the hospital. My mother didn't make it through emergency care either, but she held on just long enough to say two things to me. She told me a string of passwords she and my dad shared. She told me where the property deed and their other documents were kept. And finally she said, "Don't trust anyone." Not even a parting word of comfort, just that. The pain was too much for her to speak more. She died staring up at me with tear-filled eyes. I was still in my school uniform. I'd run too fast getting there, and my shoelaces had come undone. I never tied them back. I knelt beside my mother's body, stunned, as the doctor beside me quietly pronounced her death. Grief that deep doesn't make you cry. It numbs you. It makes everything feel like a dream. Someone handed me their shattered phone, and, following her instructions, I numbly transferred every last cent from their accounts into my own. The funeral was organized with the help of my parents' old friends. They contacted a lawyer for me. The drunk driver's insurance and my parents' life insurance policies paid out a decent sum. And then the relatives started arriving. My dad's older brother and his wife came wearing brand new clothes, their eyes gleaming as they stared at the house like it was already theirs. "Benjamin," my uncle began, "now that your parents are gone, your aunt and I will move in to take care of you." He didn't ask, it was a declaration. "But your two older cousins will come live here too. Your room's the biggest. They can share it. You'll take the small one near the balcony, all right?" We had 3 rooms. The master bedroom had belonged to my parents. Mine was decent, but the tiny room he mentioned couldn't even fit a full-size bed. It didn't even have a window. They didn't know the compensation money was being handled by a lawyer and my parents' mutual friends. Then he said, "You're still a minor. Let your uncle manage the settlement. We'll give you an allowance regularly. Once you graduate college, we'll hand it over." His eldest son was already in his 20s. Just last year, this same uncle had borrowed money from my dad, several $1,000s, which, of course, they never paid back. "I'll be fine on my own," I told him. The look on their faces changed instantly. They shifted gears, putting on a sympathetic act, shedding a few tears, saying I was my father's only son, that he and my mom wouldn't rest easy in the afterlife knowing I was left alone. But I stood firm. I was 17, not stupid. The 2 people who loved me most in this world were gone. This house, nestled in an old neighborhood close to several schools, was something my parents had planned for me since the day they got married. I wasn't about to let it go. My uncle's voice was gentle, but the calculation in his eyes was cold and sharp. When I refused him, more relatives came knocking. My mother's younger brother and younger sister, all wanting custody of me. Or more accurately, wanting a piece of the house and the compensation money. Even the best soundproofing couldn't block out their fighting. They all talked over one another, shouting rather than reasoning, trying to outvolume rather than outargue. At first, they tried to act civil. That didn't last. My uncle from my mother's side shouted, "He's my sister's son. Of course he should stay with me. I know exactly what the rest of you are thinking. Don't even dream of touching their compensation money." My dad's older brother barked back, "She married into the Davis family. She's one of us. Benjamin is part of the Davis family too. Why shouldn't I take care of him? Don't turn this around and pretend like you're not after the money." I didn't say a word. But I knew these people. When my parents were alive, they leeched off them, always with a handout. If I didn't have money in my name right now, they'd see me as a burden. Suddenly, someone started banging on the front door. The kind of pounding that made the whole frame rattle. Everyone froze. My uncle cursed under his breath as he stormed toward the door. Who the hell? The second the door opened, his voice cut off. I looked past the crowd. A tall man stood outside. He was dressed in all black, wearing a snug short-sleeved shirt that clung to his broad, muscular frame. Tattoo ink coiled across his right arm in bold, dark patterns. His golden eyes were sharp. His entire presence bristled with irritation. My once arrogant uncle visibly stiffened. Who are you looking for? The man's voice was low, laced with annoyance. Are you all done yelling yet? After extracting a tense promise to quiet down, the man turned with a scowl and disappeared into the house next door. I blinked. That house had been empty for ages. The previous neighbors moved out when their kid went to college, and it had been up for sale ever since. Apparently, someone had bought it. So that tattooed guy was my new neighbor. Once he was gone and the door shut, my relatives started murmuring again. Benjamin, why is your new neighbor so scary? My aunt grumbled. I glanced at my weeping younger aunt, who was still clutching my sleeve for effect. Then I looked at the rest of the room, my mom's brother and his wife, her sister and brother-in-law, my dad's older brother and sister-in-law, and my older male cousin. My parents had supported their siblings for over 20 years. And still, none of them stood tall on their own. Now that I held a house and a lump sum of money, they didn't see me as a grieving child. They saw a prize. I kept my voice as steady as I could. I'm 17. I can take care of myself. You should all go home. That wiped the fake concern right off their faces. In an instant, they changed their tune, voices rising again as they crowded around, telling me it was for my own good, that they only wanted what was best for me. I stayed unmoved and delivered my verdict, calm and clear. I'm not used to having other people in my home. What's that supposed to mean, Benjamin? My father's older brother snapped. Are you kicking your uncle out? Your parents are gone now. We're your closest family. Family? They were the same group who showed up late to my parents' funeral. People who'd vanish whenever money was needed but always showed up when money was involved. My house can't fit this many people, I said, folding my arms as I looked at my dad's brother. Didn't you say I should transfer all the money to you, and you'd give it back when I got married and had kids? I'm almost an adult. I could get a boyfriend soon. If you all move in, I'll have to ask you to leave when I get married. Isn't that a hassle? Before I even finished, my mom's younger brother shouted, What? Davis, are you seriously trying to get Benjamin to give you the money? Have you no shame? Planning to use it to buy your son a house and a wife, is that it? And just like that, the bickering started again, though noticeably quieter this time. Each of them wanted to stay, but none of them could stand the idea of the others staying too. And since it was clearly impossible for all of them to live here, they begrudgingly dragged each other away. Not that I would have let any of them stay, anyway. None of them ever cared about what I wanted, even though the house was now legally mine. After shutting the door, I went into my parents' bedroom. Their belongings were still there, untouched. Nothing had changed. It felt like they'd just gone on a short trip. But I knew they weren't coming back. The grief came crashing down, slow and late like a wave that had taken its time to build. I sank to the floor, pulled my knees up, and started to cry. 17 years of life, and I had never felt so alone. Everything I once thought was stable and secure had shattered like glass. I hated the driver who caused the accident. I hated him for driving drunk. I hated that it wasn't him who died instead. But prison time and money couldn't bring my parents back. My tears spilled freely. I couldn't stop them. Even though I was the only one left in the house now, I still didn't dare to cry out loud. I curled up in the corner and sobbed as quietly as I could. After that day, I went back to school. But my relatives, they didn't let me go. They weren't done trying to get their hands on what my parents had left behind. Some of them even rented cheap apartments nearby, showing up at my door constantly under the guise of checking in. At first, They were sweet-talking me, saying they were worried, saying they just wanted to take care of me. But soon enough, it started again. My dad's brother asking for money so his son could buy a house. My mom's brother saying he needed a car. My mom's younger sister saying her kid wanted to go to college. It was like they'd coordinated their efforts, each taking turns trying to fish money out of me. None of them stopped to think about what that money really was, what it cost. My parents died for it. They knew how to guilt trip. But so did I. So when the masks came off, they tried another tactic. They started calling me ungrateful, a cold-hearted brat. And honestly, I was relieved my grandparents on both sides had passed away years ago. If they were still around, I knew they'd just be more people trying to pick me clean. Every few days, I'd see one of those relatives hanging around my front door, like I owed them something, like I was a debtor, and they were collectors. I couldn't live like this. I was reaching my limit. So one Saturday afternoon, I walked next door and knocked. The man who answered was shirtless, his short hair messy with sleep. There was a large tattoo curling up his right arm and disappearing toward his chest. A snake. He looked like someone no one in their right mind would mess with. "Hi," I began, trying to hide how nervous I felt. "Are you in a gang?" There was a flicker of surprise on his face, but he stayed silent for a moment, then gave me a flat look. "What do you want?" His features were striking, sharp lines, sculpted jaw, a handsome face. But the way he carried himself made you forget his looks. He had a presence, heavy and dangerous. I'd observed him before. He usually left the house around 8 or 9 in the evening and returned around dawn. If he got back late enough, I'd sometimes hear his door when I was up reviewing notes. The old lock on these doors made a lot of noise. I figured he worked a physical job. He was built like it. Tall, broad, with the kind of strength that made people keep their distance. Even so, I made myself speak. "Bro, I'm your neighbor. I live right next to you. I was wondering if I could ask for a favor." "Not interested," he said, already starting to close the door. I panicked and reached out to stop it. "Wait, I'll pay. You won't have to do much. Just help me get rid of a few people." He paused. "Are you trying to hire me as a bodyguard? Something like that?" Before I could explain further, he cut me off, voice colder now. "Getting pushed around and you come to a stranger for help? Go talk to your parents." "I don't have parents," I said quietly. "What?" He stopped. His eyes rested on my face, really looking at me for the first time. My mom and dad died in an accident. Now all their siblings are trying to take everything they left me. They come to my door almost every day. I met his eyes. "You remember those people who were screaming the other day? Kept you up? That was them. You probably don't want to hear them again either, right?" He frowned. "They're the ones trying to shake you down?" "Yeah. Every single one of them owed my parents money at some point. Never paid it back. And now they want to take everything else too." I looked him straight in the eye. "Bro, how much do you make per day? I'll pay you that. Just help me keep them away." All I needed was for him to show up whenever my so-called relatives came knocking and scare them off. That was it. Nothing more. The tattooed guy finally gave a short laugh. "You even know how much I make a day to afford asking that?" I didn't. But I also didn't have a better plan. "Name your price." I offered tentatively. Instead of answering, he asked, "When do those relatives usually show up?" "I'm not sure. But probably this evening." It was the weekend. They always picked weekends, knowing I'd be home. They were still busy posting long rants on Facebook. Some were downright nasty. Most were voice messages, which I couldn't even be bothered to listen to. "All right, go back for now," I heard him say. His tone was unreadable. I stood there blankly, watching the door close. I wasn't even sure if that meant he agreed or not. Later, around 5 in the evening, someone knocked. I tensed up immediately. But this knock was different. There was no familiar shouting. No aggressive pounding. The rhythm was, "Th." I stood behind the door and called out, "Who is it?" "It's me," came the voice of my neighbor. I opened the door and froze at the scene outside. There were several men standing there. Besides the tattooed guy, there were 3 others. All tall. All built like tanks. One of them had a buzz cut and muscles that rivaled pro fighters. His face looked like it belonged in a crime documentary. Another had dyed purple hair, covered in chains and bracelets, with full tattoos running up both arms. The last had curly hair and wore a sleeveless tank, leaner than the others, but his eyes were sharp as a blade. Most notably, they were all carrying things. Bro. I looked at the tattooed one, confused. He walked past me without pause. I haven't installed my own kitchen yet, he said. We're borrowing yours to grill some meat. Just like that, he led the group straight into my kitchen. Leave the front door open, he added casually, glancing back at me. None of them acknowledged me as they began unpacking. They had brought trays of meat, vegetables, and cooking supplies. Soon it got too cramped, and the biggest guy got booted out of the kitchen. Kid, what are you staring at? He asked in a deep, gruff voice, catching me mid-stare. I was just admiring your muscles, I replied instinctively. They're really well built. That did it. He burst out laughing. You've got taste. What should I call you? I asked. And just like that, a few names dropped into the room as casually as if we were old friends. The big guy lounging on my couch like he owned the place? That was Peter Peterson. The purple-haired punk with the chains and layered accessories? John Johnson. The wiry one with the curls and sharp eyes? David Davidson. As for my tattooed neighbor? Andrew Powell. The smell of grilled meat filled the room. They came out of the kitchen with pots, plates of sizzling barbecue, vegetables, and dipping sauces, like it was their home, not mine. Why are you just standing there? Peter called from the couch. It's your house. Come eat. Right. The dipping sauce was spicy. I took one bite and immediately sucked in a breath. It burned, but damn it was good. Andrew opened a can of Coke with one hand, stabbed in a straw, and passed it to me. Can't handle spicy food? I'm good, Andrew. I like it, I'm not great with heat. He didn't even flinch at the fact I knew his name. Just got up, poured me a glass of warm water, and set it in front of me. If you can't take it, don't use the sauce. The others froze mid-bite. John pouted. Andrew, last time I broke out in acne and didn't want spice, you told me to sit at a different table. David added with a grumble. You literally said, picky eaters get out. Peter was cracking up. Andrew just rolled his eyes. What? You think you can kick the owner out of his own house while you're freeloading his dinner? Who's running this circus now? They bantered back and forth for a while. Despite their intimidating looks, they were surprisingly chill. Just loud guys with even louder personalities. Halfway through the meal, right on cue, there was noise outside. I heard several voices outside. Benjamin Davis. So you've got the nerve to sit at home and barbecue now? That was my father's older brother. He'd clearly caught the scent of grilled meat and probably saw that my front door was left wide open. Right on cue came my mom's younger sister. All the suffering your elders went through because of you? What a heartless little brat. They'd come as a group, clearly having discussed this beforehand. Same team, same mission, bleed me dry. But when they peered through the open door, they were met with a view they didn't expect. 4 tall, imposing men turned in unison to look back at them, then stood up one by one. These weren't men with paunches from too many beers and not enough work. They were built. The kind of built that comes from actual training, not leisure. The 4 of them stood shoulder to shoulder. The tension in the air shifted. Benjamin Davis, who the hell are you mixing with these days? If your parents could see you now, they'd be turning in their graves. You're wasting away your youth with a bunch of thugs? How long do you think you'll make that money last? One day, it'll all be gone, spent on this pack of leeches. They thought standing on their moral high ground gave them the right to march inside. But Andrew Powell and his crew stepped forward. Just 2 paces, and those 2 steps were enough to make the intruders instinctively stumble back. What is this supposed to mean, Benjamin? Barked my aunt, the wife of my dad's older brother. You brought in a bunch of gangsters to intimidate your elders? She was usually brash, but even she hesitated now. Even she could tell, these men weren't just for show. Andrew looked at them and spoke, calm but cutting. You're his elders, right? Then let me ask, his parents died not long ago, left him alone in this world. He didn't ask for your help. He didn't beg you for a penny. But maybe you should think about returning the money you borrowed from his parents. That seems fair, doesn't it? The room went quiet. Not one of them had expected that. Money? My mom's younger brother scoffed. What money? They never lent me anything. Then my aunt jumped in. His father did wire us some money, but that was for taking care of his grandparents back then. That wasn't a loan. Don't twist the story. My younger aunt quickly echoed the same line. I felt I always knew what kind of people they were, but hearing them twist my parents' generosity into debts never owed still made something in me ache. My parents' phones are still here, I said calmly. The chat history says otherwise. I looked directly at my mother's brother. Uncle, did you forget? 2 years ago, you borrowed $50,000 from my dad. There's a written I owe you. Want me to dig up the messages and the contract? Their faces dropped. They'd been showing up recently just to squeeze money out of me. Now they were being asked to cough it up instead? Of course they hadn't planned for that. They never thought they'd actually have to pay anything back. Suddenly, the door slammed shut behind them. They spun around and saw that the guy with the curly hair had quietly circled around and locked it from the inside. Andrew's voice came like a blade. No one's leaving until the debts are paid. Panic set in fast. They rushed for the door, but it was too late. What are you trying to do? I'll call the cops. Peter, the big guy, chuckled. Go ahead. When they get here, we'll see who the shameless ones really are. Owing money and refusing to pay? You think the law's not on his side when he's got proof. My dad's older brother suddenly turned to me. Benjamin Davis, is this really how you treat your family? You're letting strangers bully us now? Are you even part of the Davis family anymore? No, I said, voice flat. Not when you stop treating me like family first. Peter burst out laughing. You got by, kid? The four of them blocked every exit with casual intimidation. My so-called relatives, who usually swaggered around waving the elder card, were visibly rattled. One by one, they pulled out their phones and reluctantly transferred a few $1,000s each, all while grumbling about needing to repay in installments. Andrew watched the transactions roll in on my phone and added quietly, "Make sure they put repayment in the notes." Only then did he open the door and let them out. I looked down at my phone, the new total over 10 grand. My brows finally relaxed. I knew those promises to repay in installments were probably BS. But they came expecting to bleed me dry. And left bleeding themselves. God, that felt good. You guys are amazing. I blurted out. Peter waved a meaty hand. Please. Those types only pick on kids who seem soft. You've got Andrew as a neighbor now, they'll think twice next time. David snorted. Bunch of grown-ass adults, shameless enough to go after a teenager's house and inheritance. Pathetic. Nothing new, said John, brushing purple bangs from his forehead. Losers who only know how to bully the weak. They returned to the grill like nothing had happened. Finished eating, wiped their mouths, and headed out with a quick, later, to Andrew. Apparently, they had night shifts coming up. I turned to Andrew and asked, "So, how much do I owe you for today?" He still hadn't told me what his day rate was. Andrew Powell gave me a glance, then looked at the table. You clean up, keep the money, and don't go around telling people how much you've got. He never took my money. Neither did his friends. They simply treated it like a regular barbecue, ate, chatted, then left as casually as they came, leaving behind a full bag of unopened snacks and drinks. When Andrew was about to leave, I finally snapped out of it and called after him, managing to add his contact info before he slipped out the door. I still didn't know what he actually did for a living. The late nights, the early mornings, all of it made me assume the worst. But a few days later, I stumbled across a post online and learned the truth. Andrew Powell was a bartender at a bar nearby. So he wasn't some gang member after all. I remembered the first time I'd asked if he was in the mob, and suddenly felt a deep wave of secondhand embarrassment. But regardless of my misconceptions, he'd helped me. And after that day, thanks to his help, my father's older brother and the rest of the relatives backed off. Quietly, as if by unspoken agreement, afraid they'd be asked to pay what they owed. One weekend, I sent Andrew a message. I wanted to thank him and his 3 friends with dinner. I'd even checked the hours of his bar. Dinner would be early enough to fit into his schedule. He replied bluntly at first, "Don't bother." But when I insisted, he reluctantly agreed and told me to just send him the time and place. He'd tell the others. When the day came, I walked over and knocked on his door. He opened it wearing a deep burgundy shirt, the sleeves rolled to his elbows. The top button was undone, collar open, revealing the faint lines of the tattoo on his arm curling toward his chest. A silver cross necklace rested just above the exposed ink, and he smelled faintly of cologne. "Let's go," he said simply. I'd picked a restaurant not far from the bar, on purpose. Made a reservation early and even got us a private room. The other 3 were already there. "Benjamin's here? Come sit, come sit. We're eating good thanks to you today." I smiled and took the empty seat. "Come on, David. I should be the one thanking you guys. Things have been so much quieter lately." But as soon as their eyes shifted to Andrew's outfit, the guy with the curls gave a teasing whistle. "Andrew, dressing like that just for dinner with our pretty boy?" Andrew kicked him in the shin under the table, not hard. "Get lost. This is my work uniform." The others burst into laughter. "Work uniform?" I must have looked confused because David slung an arm around my shoulder and explained, "Benjamin, Andrew co-owns the bar we work at. I play in the house band with John Johnson here, and Peter Peterson's head of security. Bartenders are hard to come by these days, anyone halfway decent's already taken, so Andrew jumped behind the bar himself. Now people don't even care about the drinks. They come just to ogle his face. John, purple hair as always, grinned. Andrew's basically our bar's poster boy now. Everyone else gets to take time off, but him? No way. Every night, some rich cougar or sugar daddy shows up asking if he's available. Andrew shoved a slice of watermelon in John's mouth. "Quit corrupting the kid." "What kid?" "He's 17. John protested through the fruit. "I'd already had 2 boyfriends by 17. Andrew, which is why you flunked college." "Hey, that's a low blow." "You flunked, didn't you?" "Yeah, but still. Don't hit me with an education attack." Andrew just rolled his eyes. "Eat something. Keep your mouth busy." Dinner had been pre-ordered, so the dishes came quickly. Partway through the meal, Andrew stepped out to use the restroom. A few minutes later, I followed. On my way back, I caught sight of him at the front desk, trying to settle the bill. Only the staff was already telling him, "It's been paid." He turned around and met my gaze. I smiled at him. "Andrew, I told you it was my treat. I paid already." He paused. "You're really something." A grown man letting a high schooler foot the bill. "Who does that?" he muttered. Then added under his breath, "Where'd you learn to be so smooth at your age?" "My mom," I answered honestly. "She always said, if you invite someone to dinner, show real sincerity." He reached up and gave me a light tap on the head. "Don't overthink everything. You're in high school. Focus on your studies." After the meal, the others asked if I wanted to visit the bar sometime. "Benjamin, our place is fun," said John with a smirk. "Plenty of hotties, guys and girls. You're cute, you'd fit right in." Before he could finish, Andrew cut in sharply. "Benjamin, I'll take you home." Then he gave John a sidelong glare. "John Johnson, stop trying to lead him astray. Andrew, you sound like his strict dad. Chill out. It's a respectable bar, all right?" Andrew said nothing. After that dinner, Andrew and I grew closer, but we didn't see each other often. He had his bar. I had my classes. We lived on 2 completely different tracks. I slowly got used to being on my own. School during the day. Quiet house at night. Until summer break arrived. I'd been spending more time at home lately, mostly buried in practice tests. The bar Andrew Powell worked at seemed to be doing well. He often didn't get home until nearly 6 in the morning. One night, I couldn't sleep. It was already 4 a.m., and I got up to use the bathroom. As I was walking back, a loud thump echoed from outside. At that hour, the only person who could be moving around was Andrew Powell. I hesitated a few seconds, then carefully opened the door. The hallway's motion sensor light was still on, casting a dim glow, and there he was. Andrew was collapsed on the floor. I froze, then quickly rushed out and crouched beside him. "Andrew!" I called softly, shaking him a little. The smell of alcohol hit me immediately. He was completely wasted. "Andrew, hey, wake up." I patted around for his keys, but couldn't find any on him. He stirred slightly, but didn't open his eyes. At least he was breathing steadily. I glanced down the empty corridor, then back at him. I couldn't just leave him outside like this. So I gritted my teeth and, with a mix of dragging and half-carrying, hauled him inside my apartment. Andrew was tall and solidly built. It was like trying to move a collapsed tree. By the time I got him into my room and pulled off his shoes, I was drenched in sweat. I turned off the lights and shut the door, then collapsed in the other room myself. Thanks to the insomnia and physical labor, I didn't wake until the sun was high. As soon as I opened my door, I saw him, Andrew Powell, sitting in my living room. No idea how long he'd been awake. "You're up early," I said, rubbing my eyes. Andrew looked at me. He was still in last night's clothes, rubbing the bridge of his nose. "How did I get in?" He'd clearly blacked out. Not surprising, considering how drunk he was. I gave him a quick rundown, including the part about not finding his keys. He checked his pockets, then muttered, "Probably left them at the bar." I brought him a set of disposable toiletries I kept for emergencies. "I'm ordering takeout. Want anything?" I heard the water stop running in the bathroom, then his voice. "Whatever you're having." When he came out, he looked over at the takeout containers, then at the stash of instant noodles I had piled in a corner. "This your usual diet on breaks?" he asked. "What?" I blinked. "Yeah. Why?" "When school's in session, I eat at the cafeteria. But at home, takeout's easier. I can cook a little, but I wouldn't call it good." Andrew didn't say anything else. After eating, he sent someone a quick message and left, casually taking the trash out with him. It should have been an ordinary day. Until evening rolled around, and Andrew messaged me. "Come eat." It was the first time I'd ever stepped inside his apartment. There were a few dishes already laid out on the table. The smell was incredible. Andrew, wearing a black tank top, emerged from the kitchen with a pot of soup. "Sit," he said simply. "You can cook." I still hadn't fully processed the moment. He gave a nonchalant nod and placed the bowl of soup in front of me. "Eat up." I made too much. Every dish was delicious. I ate while flashing him a thumbs up. "Bro, you're amazing." He didn't even pretend to be modest, just smirked a little. "Of course I am." It had been a long time since I felt what it was like to have a home-cooked meal, even if it wasn't in my own home. I kept my head down, eating quietly. Andrew didn't seem to notice anything off. After that night, Andrew would occasionally flex his cooking skills again, and invite me over for dinner. "Andrew, should I pitch in for groceries or something?" I asked one evening while helping him in the kitchen. He was flipping something in the pan. I was playing assistant, chopping garlic. He scoffed. "You think I'm short on money?" "I know you're not," I said. "But I feel bad eating for free all the time. It's just an extra portion. Don't overthink it." When I finished chopping, I stood there watching him cook. After a while, I blurted out, "Andrew, you're good-looking, you earn money, and you cook like this. How come you don't have a boyfriend or something?" Even as another guy, I had to admit, he was the kind of person who should be drowning in admirers. Andrew paused for a beat, then glanced over and kicked my leg lightly. "Kid's got a sharp tongue, huh? You're way too nosy." Once school started again, I went back to eating at the campus cafeteria, out the door in the morning, home only after evening study hall. It was a demanding year. But on weekends, I'd still occasionally get to eat Andrew Powell's cooking. The year passed in a blur. I turned 18 during a week full of exams. No one knew. No one remembered. My phone still had last year's birthday messages from my parents saved in the gallery. I'd grown taller since then. Slowly, I was climbing out of that dark stretch of grief, but I couldn't go back to being the bright, outgoing version of myself. Not completely. That whole year, my brain was stuffed with formulas and essays, equations and vocabulary. If my mind ever strayed, it was soon dragged back into the trenches. I once bragged to my parents that I'd get into the best university in the city. I never planned to apply far away. In the second half of senior year, Andrew Powell changed the way he fed me. He got busier at the bar, and by the time I got home from evening study, he was still working. So he handed me a spare key to his place. Now, after study hall, I'd let myself in, reheat the food he'd left, and eat quietly in his kitchen. Maybe it was my age, still growing, but I had a bottomless pit for a stomach. Most nights, my version of a luxury meal was instant noodles with a slice of ham. Usually, I just gnawed on bread. But Andrew's meals? They were basically gourmet. I tried sending him money once. He refused. So instead, I made sure to clean all the dishes afterward and would tidy up the kitchen a little. When he caught on, he laughed. What kind of restaurant pays their part-time cleaner in leftovers? He told me to stop cleaning. I didn't listen. Thanks to him, I grew taller, filled out a bit, and even looked healthier, face no longer pale, eyes no longer sunken. I wasn't dumb. I knew Andrew's, just making a little extra excuse was just that, an excuse. He pitied me. He sympathized. And he offered a neighbor's quiet kindness. Kind of like Mrs. Mary downstairs, who still brought me eggs now and then. She used to be close with my mom. But Andrew wasn't the same. He was different. I just didn't know how to explain how. After the final exams, a few classmates from my study group planned a small celebration. A few boys, a few girls. It was organized by Lily Whitelock, the only girl in our group besides her desk partner. We're all adults now, right? She said, eyes sparkling. Let's go somewhere we can eat and drink. She suggested a trendy bar she saw on social media. The second she said it, I had a strange feeling. And sure enough, when we arrived at the entrance and I saw the sign, I knew. It was Andrew Powell's bar. I'd never been to a bar before. I didn't really know what to expect. Inside, the lights were purple and moody, the music low and rhythmic. It wasn't peak hours yet, so it wasn't too loud. The menu had both food and drinks. A little pricey, especially the non-alcoholic stuff. There were also board games scattered across the tables. My eyes drifted toward the bar counter. And there he was, Andrew Powell. He wore a crisp white shirt, his hair slicked back in a clean pompadour. The bar stools were nearly all occupied. There was another bartender too, a tall woman with a high ponytail and a killer smile. See those two at the bar? One of the girls whispered, lifting her phone to snap a picture. They're so hot. That guy, Andrew, I think, is blowing up online. The two of them started zooming in on their photos. God, why is he that attractive? Too bad there are no seats left at the bar. I'd kill to sit in front of him. Or her. Either works. Meanwhile, the boys were commenting on Andrew's tattoo sleeve. They said it looked sick. I kept staring until Andrew suddenly looked over, directly at our table. Startled, I quickly turned away. He's looking this way, someone muttered. Is he checking if we're underage? Not long after, our food arrived. So did the drinks. Damn, this food's amazing. How is that even fair? No wonder their reviews are all 5 stars. Hot staff and good food. Wait, is that bartender walking this way? I looked up. Andrew Powell was already at our table, carrying a tray with 6 drinks. Hi, we didn't order, someone started. Andrew smiled. Under the low lights, that smile hit different. I know. But you all just graduated, right? He said. Here, complimentary low-alcohol cocktails to celebrate. You could tell just by looking? Lily's eyes widened, genuinely amazed. We dressed that badly? Andrew chuckled. He finally turned to me. Benjamin. First time bringing friends over. Why didn't you say anything? And suddenly, all eyes were on me. How'd the exams go? Andrew asked casually. Not too bad, someone answered. Didn't feel as hard as we expected. Bro, you're asking about grades here? I groaned. Seriously? Before leaving, Andrew Powell said simply, hope you all have a good time tonight. Later, we realized something strange. Everything we paid for had been refunded. Benjamin, you know the bartender? One of the girls in our group turned to me, eyes sparkling. What's he like in private? Is he single? Do you know the other bartender too? The woman, she's gorgeous. We're neighbors. He's a good person. I don't know much else. I answered each question as best I could. There was no doubt, Andrew Powell had just done me a huge favor. We had originally planned to leave before midnight, but something unexpected happened. I overestimated my alcohol tolerance. Aside from the low-alcohol cocktails Andrew gave us, we'd ordered drinks ourselves. Between chatting and playing games, we polished off every drop. At first, it was just a buzz in my head, a sense of clumsiness in my limbs. Then, at some point, the room started spinning. The next thing I knew, I had blacked out. When I came to, my head was still heavy. The surroundings unfamiliar. There was noise outside. I was in a small room, lying on a sofa. Boxes and miscellaneous items were stacked around me. Someone had draped a blazer over me. It smelled faintly of cologne, the same scent Andrew Powell usually wore. My phone buzzed in my pocket. The time read close to 3 a.m. It was the group chat, the 6 of us from the study group. The latest unread message had tagged me. Apparently, once they realized I was drunk and didn't know where I lived, they'd gone to the bar counter and asked Andrew Powell for help. He had taken care of it, promising to take me home after his shift. The rest of the chat had moved on to planning a graduation trip, full of laughter and emojis. Ugh. I covered my face. What a humiliating first time drinking. I closed my eyes again, hoping to delay the awkwardness of having to step out. But then the door opened. Footsteps. Then a voice I didn't recognize. Andrew Powell, you're seriously hard to get. I mean, you're into guys. If you won't date me, can't we at least spend a night together? It's not like I'm asking for a relationship. I went rigid. Then Andrew Powell's voice responded, calm and cold. You're literally harassing me right now. The man laughed. Well, yeah, I haven't had you yet, so of course I'm still thinking about it. Just once, Andrew. One night, and I'll leave you alone. You don't bring people home, I get that. We don't even have to do this at your place. Right here works for me. Wait, what? Hands off. Get out. Andrew's voice again. Chirp. Then a door shut. Silence. Footsteps approaching. They stopped right in front of me. A light kick to my shin. If you're awake, get up. Time to go home. I cautiously opened my eyes and met Andrew Powell's gaze. My heart skipped. Andrew, how did you know I was awake? You frowned just now, he replied simply. I sat up and mumbled, I wasn't trying to eavesdrop. I didn't say you were, he said. Bars like this, doesn't matter how clean they look, they're always messy behind the scenes. You can't handle your alcohol? Don't come back. Oh. I tried to stand. The moment I did, my legs wobbled. A familiar tattooed arm caught me before I fell. You good? Yeah. But he didn't let go. When we stepped outside, the bar was still open, full of patrons. Is it okay for you to leave now? I asked. They've got it covered. The walk home felt longer than usual. At one point, Andrew switched from holding me up to slinging his arm around my shoulders. The bar wasn't far from our apartment complex. He probably chose to live nearby because sometimes, after his shifts, he drank too. We parted at our doors. I texted the group chat to let them know I got back safe, then took a quick shower and collapsed into bed. It was a hot June night. Cicadas cried endlessly outside, buzzing into the dark. Lying there, I kept replaying what I'd heard in that storage room. My mind spun and twisted with thoughts until one conclusion finally settled in. So that's what it is. Andrew Powell looked out for me because we were neighbors. Because he was kind. But my feelings for him might not be so simple. And that realization, that was a very, very bad sign. My classmates and I had planned a graduation trip. After a year of studying, grinding, and helping one another through the trenches of senior year, the bond between us felt unbreakable. On the 4th day of the trip, Andrew Powell messaged me. Where did you go? When his name and profile picture popped up on my screen, my eyelashes fluttered slightly. There's nothing more terrifying than the moment you realize you're catching feelings. Worse, those feelings weren't for someone my age. And definitely not for someone of the opposite sex. Still, I answered honestly, letting him know where I was and what we were doing. He simply replied, "Be safe." Halfway through the trip, something unexpected happened. A couple formed. Lily Whitelock and my desk mate, Jeremy Blackwell, were holding hands. I stared at them, wide-eyed, but no one else looked even remotely surprised. "You all knew?" Jeremy gave me a look. "Benjamin, your brain is literally just textbooks and exams at this point. You really didn't notice how often I dragged you along to find her? To eat together? To study?" Lily added, "He even brought me bubble tea sometimes. Didn't you notice?" "He brought me bubble tea too." Jeremy rolled his eyes. "Yeah, not the same." "Wait," I blinked. "Was I the third wheel this whole time?" They burst out laughing, zero mercy. Still confused, I later cornered them separately and asked the same question. "What does it feel like to fall in love with someone?" Lily smiled a little and said, "It's like everything reminds you of them, no matter what you're doing." Then she shook her head. "Forget it. I can't explain it to you." Jeremy grinned and said, "Don't you think she's absolutely, stupidly adorable?" "Then you're blind, man." Their answers didn't really help me understand anything. But one thing stuck with me. Everything reminds you of them. That I understood. We flew home on a late afternoon flight. Once we landed, we slowly parted ways at different subway stops, saying our goodbyes. By the time I dragged my suitcase back to my front door, Andrew Powell happened to be stepping out. He looked sharp as always. I hadn't seen him in days. During the trip, I'd barely even had time to check my phone. But now, seeing him again, that dull part of me I'd been trying to ignore stirred back to life. I couldn't help looking at him longer than I should have. "Andrew, you're back?" He glanced over at me, raising an eyebrow. "Had a good time?" I nodded. "All right, get some rest. I'm heading to work. Come eat at my place tomorrow," he said and walked off. Back in my apartment, I caught my reflection in the mirror. Still very much a student, young, fresh-faced, and painfully ordinary. Someone like me didn't match someone like Andrew Powell. I'd seen the people who tried to flirt with him. Every one of them was stylish, polished, and confident. But once feelings take root, they spread like wildfire. And I'd already crossed that line. I even started dreaming about him. The kind of dreams that left me speechless. When I woke, it was always with a jolt. Embarrassed, restless, and more lost than before. Then came my college acceptance letter. When I refreshed the webpage and saw the offer pop up, I felt like a weight had finally been lifted from my chest. It should have been a moment of celebration, something to share with family. But the house was silent. It was just me. My excitement surged with nowhere to go, so I found myself at Andrew's door, knocking before I could stop myself. Only after I did it did I realize he was probably asleep. I started to turn away. But the door opened. He looked like he'd just woken up. Hair tousled, expression grumpy. "Benjamin." I held up my phone, the letter still glowing on the screen. "Andrew, I got in." He stared at the screen a moment, then gave a small, impressed huff. "That's a hell of a score." I realized he didn't even know what my average grades were, so this was probably surprising to him. Then he reached out and ruffled my hair. I froze. "What school are you thinking of choosing?" he asked. It took me a second to respond, but I told him my top choice. "Nice," he said. "Still close enough to come back on weekends." I spent the entire afternoon at my parents' graves. I shared the good news with them, my college acceptance, and also my confusion. I knew this wasn't what they would have wanted for me. But emotions, they aren't something you can choose. They bloom and spread with no warning, no mercy. I remembered my mom once teasing my dad about what kind of girl I might like in the future. He had just laughed, told her she was thinking too far ahead. "Let the kid live his own life," he'd said. "He'll be fine." But now, if they could see me like this, would they be disappointed? I'd never get an answer to that. I just knew I needed to see Andrew Powell, even if it was just to catch a glimpse. So one day during summer break, I went to his bar by myself. I went early, before the crowd came in, and took a seat right at the bar. He was wearing a black button-up. I watched him crack the ice, pour liquor, shake the cocktail mixer like he'd done it 1,000 times. The drink glowed amber in the glass as he poured it out. He noticed me, of course, but didn't say anything at first. I kept my eyes on the menu, pretending I hadn't been staring. A long moment passed. Then a glass was placed in front of me. It was a dark drink with a slice of lemon on the rim. "What's this?" I blinked. "Andrew, I didn't order anything yet." Andrew was standing right there, looking at me closely. "Non-alcoholic Long Island iced tea," he said. I took a sip. "Tastes like cola." "With that tolerance of yours?" he scoffed, lips twitching. "Just sit and enjoy the atmosphere." He didn't ask why I was there. Didn't say much else before moving on to serve other customers. I sat quietly watching him work. Andrew Powell at work wasn't quite the same as the Andrew I knew from home. He was smooth, funny, charismatic. No wonder people liked him. Then someone came up behind me. A hand landed on my shoulder, and a voice whispered close to my ear. "Hey, cutie. You here alone?" His breath hit my skin, warm and humid. It felt like someone had kissed my ear. Goosebumps exploded down my spine. That hand slid down my back. "Whoa, why so jumpy?" The guy chuckled and pulled his hand back, sliding into the stool next to me. I turned my head and got a good look at him under the dim lights. Young, fit, tacky floral shirt. Definitely the type who spent hours at the gym. His gaze, though, it made my skin crawl. "Come, handsome," he said. "This is fate. Let me buy you a drink." "No thanks," I replied, voice tight. He leaned in again, lowering his voice. "You're here for Andrew, huh?" My heart dropped. He grinned when he saw my reaction. "Thought so. Hate to break it to you, sweetheart, but I'm a regular here, and Andrew? He doesn't take anyone home. Ever. You're probably not even his type. Why not try your luck with someone who is interested?" I shifted away instinctively, glancing toward Andrew. He was already looking at me, brows furrowed. A moment later, he walked over and cut in sharply. "You done with your drink? I'll walk you home." The guy next to me looked like he'd seen a ghost. We didn't speak much on the walk out. Only when we stepped outside did I glance at Andrew's face. It was calm, unreadable. He spoke first. "Don't come to places like that again." He explained that bars like his weren't always as safe as they seemed. That predators don't exactly walk around with signs on their foreheads. That guy from earlier? Not the first time he'd pulled that move. I was distracted, lost in thought, but I still answered every sentence with a quiet. When we reached the building, Andrew stopped. "You go on up." I hesitated. "Are you going back to work?" He nodded. His gaze lingered on my face for a second. Then, out of nowhere, he said, "Once you start college, you'll be surrounded by people your age. Spend time with them. That's how you'll figure out what you really like and what kind of person you're actually into." I stood there, stunned, and suddenly realized, all this time, I'd been an open book to him. Everything I'd thought I was hiding, he already knew. To him, I must have looked like a kid with a crush. And yet, he never embarrassed me. He was always kind. Too kind. But feelings don't come with off switches. I looked straight into his eyes and said, "Andrew, just want to know, is it even possible that I'm in love with you?" The word love hung between us heavy. The night masked the heat in my cheeks, but not the tremble in my voice. "No," he said. His voice was too calm, too certain. "Go upstairs. Don't bring this up again." Then he turned and walked away. I stood frozen for a long time before I made myself go inside. I had ruined it. Maybe Andrew regretted ever being kind to me. Maybe he saw now what a mistake it was to help some lonely kid next door. To make me believe I had any right to feel the way I did. I didn't try to talk to him again. Not because I was being mature, but because I had no courage left. After that night, I tried my best to avoid seeing Andrew Powell altogether. Andrew Powell probably noticed I was avoiding him, but he never said anything about it. The new semester began, and I hauled my suitcase to check in for university. College life had officially started. After graduating from high school, many of my classmates had gone through huge transformations. Their social media posts made them seem like completely new people. I didn't even notice how much I'd changed too. I had a new wardrobe, a slightly layered, side part haircut, and a few admirers now, guys and girls alike. College was a whole different world. I realized just how open and accepting the outside world could be. One upperclassman in my club was particularly forward with his feelings. Before he confessed, I had never thought of him that way. But his words were sincere, and he asked if I'd give it a chance. I didn't say no. And so, something quietly ambiguous began. As winter break approached, our club planned a group outing. During the vote for the venue, one of the options, clear as day, was Andrew Powell's bar. It had gotten really popular. I voted for a different spot. In the end, my choice won, by just one vote. Naturally, a group of college kids out for a night meant things got loud. We played games, drank plenty, and laughed too hard. I'd been secretly working on my alcohol tolerance. Still wasn't great, but at least I could drink a bit without passing out. There were performers dancing on the stage, men and women, scantily dressed, each working their own magic on their chosen targets. My club seniors were sitting around me, including two of the girls who'd screamed so loud they nearly blew the roof off. With all the noise, I slipped away to the bathroom. Cold water on my face helped bring me back to myself. In the mirror, a boy stood, caught somewhere between adolescence and adulthood. I slowly patted my face dry. A strong perfume lingered in the air. Someone came up behind me and took the paper towel from my hand, dabbing at my cheeks with it. "Benjamin, you drunk?" "Not really." It was Ethan Greystone, my senior and the one I'd been somewhat involved with. He lifted my chin with his other hand, wiping a droplet of water that had slid down my neck. There was something in his eyes, suggestive, unspoken. They dropped to my lips. "Senior, that's enough," I said quietly. Ethan smiled. "If you're really drunk, I should take you back to campus." I shook my head. He leaned in again. Just then, the bathroom door opened behind us. If it had been a stranger, I wouldn't have cared. But of all the people to walk in, it was Andrew Powell. And John Johnson too. John's black wolf cut hairstyle made him look trendier than ever. Well, he drawled. "Isn't this a surprise? Benjamin, fancy seeing you here." Andrew's eyes had found me immediately. Hashtag caught getting flirted with in the bathroom by your situationship. Hashtag in front of your former crush. I wanted the floor to swallow me whole. I forced a stiff smile. "Andrew, John. What a coincidence." "Not really," John grinned. "My partner bought this place last year. I'm the boss's other half." He clapped Andrew on the shoulder, dragged Andrew out for a catch-up. "And this is?" "This is my senior. We're here for a club gathering," I said. "I see." John gave me that knowing look and didn't push. "Andrew, you're unusually quiet today," he teased. Andrew glanced at him sideways. "What do you want me to say? We're catching up in a bathroom? You into that now?" Then he turned back to me and said evenly, "Have fun tonight. Stay safe." I nodded quickly, grabbed Ethan's wrist, and practically bolted. Didn't wait to see their expressions. We played a few more games after that, even one where someone had to kiss another person as a penalty. Luckily, that punishment didn't fall to me. After the night out, winter break officially began. I got home around 9 p.m. The sound of my door unlocking must have been loud, because the door next to mine creaked open almost immediately. Andrew Powell stepped out. "You're home." I blinked. "Andrew? You're still here?" I thought he'd be at the bar by now. It was a busy hour, usually. He stared at me for a beat. "Yeah, I'm not going in tonight." Once he closed his door, curiosity got the better of me. I searched his bar on social media for the first time in a while. Turns out, their headline bartender had changed. 2 months ago. The new lead? A biracial guy with natural brown curls and a tall, athletic frame. No doubt, customers loved the novelty. So that explained it. Andrew Powell didn't bartend anymore. He had the time to just be the boss now. Since July, I'd been avoiding anything and everything related to him. Even if his name popped up online, I wouldn't click it. Eventually, even the algorithm stopped trying. Although it was winter break and I was staying home, Ethan Greystone still messaged me morning, noon, and night. Sometimes, after checking with me first, he'd even call. His pursuit wasn't aggressive. In fact, it was gentle, respectful, and consistent. Which somehow only made the contrast to my previous feelings, that wild, irrational longing for someone unattainable, all the more stark. During break, a few classmates from my major roped me into joining a short film contest. One of them had the gear, but we needed multiple filming locations. One of them had to be a regular home. So I offered mine. There were 4 of us, 2 guys and 2 girls, and we divided the tasks evenly. The other guy arrived first, and I brought him upstairs. We were just outside my door when the door next to mine opened. "Heading out, Andrew?" I asked casually. Andrew Powell glanced at the guy standing behind me. For a second he froze. "You brought a friend home?" I nodded and opened my door, letting my classmate in. Once the door shut behind us, it also shut out Andrew Powell's line of sight. The 2 girls came together later. I went downstairs again to meet them at the gate. It took time to finalize the script and storyboard. We ended up shooting for 2 straight days. The second night, after walking everyone downstairs to catch their rides, the weather had turned cold. The others had already left, except for one of the girls. Her car was stuck in traffic. We chatted while waiting. She and I got along well. When her car finally pulled up and she left, I turned around, only to be met with a low, teasing voice. "Benjamin, bringing your girlfriend home now?" Startled, I looked over. From the shadows of a wall stepped out several familiar figures. "Peter. David." I gave a slight nod, then looked at the man behind them. "Andrew." It had been a while since I last saw Peter Peterson or David Davidson. "What brings you guys here?" I asked. Peter, still towering and cheerful as ever, grinned. "Isn't Christmas coming up?" Andrew asked us to help deliver holiday gifts for the staff. That made sense. Peter slung an arm around my shoulders, not missing the opportunity to gossip about the girl I'd just sent off. "David, she's not my girlfriend." "Come on, you brought her home. Even if she's not your girlfriend, she's gotta be someone special, right? Benjamin, don't tell me you're one of those jerks who plays people for a one-night stand." "What the hell?" I opened my mouth to defend myself, but Andrew Powell had already walked ahead, a gust of cold air trailing in his wake. It hit me then. Did he think I brought a guy home last night, and now a girl tonight? Not explaining felt weird, but going out of my way to explain felt like I still hadn't moved on. In the end, I chose silence. Filming continued. I was busy leaving early and coming home late every day. Eventually, the shooting wrapped up, and all that was left was selecting footage and editing. On Christmas Eve, Andrew invited me over for dinner. It wasn't just the 2 of us. Some of his bar employees who weren't going home for the holidays were there too. After dinner, most of them had to head back to work. Christmas Eve was a busy night for bars. I stayed behind to help clean up. The kitchen was quiet, filled only with the sound of running water and dishes clinking together. Andrew Powell didn't look all that different from 2 years ago, though something about his presence had become even more magnetic. He wasn't going home for the holidays either. To this day, I still knew almost nothing about his private life, not whether he had any family, or even where his hometown was. "Andrew, Merry Christmas," I said. He had his back to me. "Merry Christmas," he replied. As for Ethan and me, that ended. The reason was simple. After the new semester began, I happened to spot a certain app on his phone. That's when I realized, even while he was pursuing me, he'd been hooking up with others on the side. His feelings might have seemed sincere, but they weren't exclusive. We didn't have a dramatic falling out. After all, he was never really my boyfriend. And I hadn't invested too much of myself emotionally. We parted politely, reverting to just senior and junior in the same club. He later asked to meet and talk in private. I agreed just to clear the air. We met in a quiet bar. "Benjamin," he said, eyes lowered slightly. "I messed up. Will you give me another chance?" That night was my first real lesson in adult relationships. No matter how genuine someone sounds when they say, "I love you," sometimes it's all an act. When I stayed silent, Ethan added, "You probably don't get it. Most people in our circle are like this. But I swear, if we got together for real, I'd be all yours." Ethan Greystone, to be fair, was good looking. "Ethan, let's just leave it at this," I said. I didn't feel like explaining more than necessary. The drink on the table was something he'd ordered. It was sweet, too sweet, but the more I sipped, the more I realized something felt off. "What kind of drink is this?" I asked. "Just a fruit wine," Ethan replied, looking innocent. "Benjamin, are you tipsy? I can take you home." "No need." I stood up, glancing briefly around the room. "I'm just going to the restroom." I left the table and followed a hallway that twisted around a corner. Just past the restroom, I spotted the bar's back door. Without hesitation, I pushed it open and stepped into the street. I flagged down the first taxi I saw and gave the driver my address. My head was spinning fast. I dug my fingernail into the pressure point between my thumb and index finger, trying to force some clarity. That drink was not what Ethan claimed. At the very least, the alcohol content was much too high. I wasn't in any condition to go back to campus. My phone buzzed in my pocket, but I couldn't focus enough to check it. The ride home stretched into a blur. When I finally stumbled out of the car and into the building, I nearly collapsed inside the elevator. I punched in the floor number. The doors opened. I stepped forward and immediately fell into someone's chest, my body giving out. "Benjamin." I was caught in strong arms, most of my weight now pressing against another person. A familiar cologne curled into my nostrils. "What happened to you?" a voice asked by my ear, low and concerned, though it felt distant, far away. I fumbled at my pockets, heart sinking. I forgot my keys. Somehow, I didn't end up on the hallway floor. I didn't make it to my own apartment, either. I was taken inside, but not to my place. I was lowered onto a couch. Someone kept asking me questions, but my face felt flushed. No, burning. My whole body was hot. He was too close. His scent surrounded me, unmistakable. My vision blurred. My lips moved on instinct, reaching for his. They were soft. Everything went quiet. The kiss tasted unfamiliar, but not bad. Then I was gently but firmly pushed down. A hand, tattooed and strong, clasped lightly at my throat, pinning me against the sofa cushions. "Benjamin Davis?" he said, using my full name. "Do you know who I am?" My eyes finally managed to focus on his face. Thoughts wouldn't come. Could barely think. My body reacted before my mind caught up. "Andrew," I murmured. "I feel awful." I was lifted again, this time into the bathroom. Warm water rained over me. I think he asked me something, I don't remember what, but I couldn't answer anyway. My coat and shoes were already gone. Once the water soaked through my clothes, they clung to me like glue. He worked to peel them off. I couldn't help it, I reached for him again. This time, he didn't stop me. I was kissed, hard, pinned against the edge of the tub. It was too much. Not enough. I wanted to get closer. I wanted more. Eventually, I was washed clean, wrapped in a thick bath towel, and tossed gently onto a bed. My legs dangled off the side. Someone knelt beside the bed. My fingers found his hair, clutching it unconsciously as a different kind of pleasure overtook me. Somewhere in between it all, I think Andrew answered a phone call. He left for a few seconds, then returned. He straddled over me, asking if I knew what he was doing. Said yes. So he stopped asking. When I woke up the next morning, my body was sore in unfamiliar ways. The bed was empty except for me. I wasn't wearing a single thing. Looking down, I saw the evidence. Faint bruises, red marks. The memory came rushing back, vivid and undeniable. I shut my eyes. I am absolutely dead. I grabbed one of Andrew Powell's shirts from a chair nearby, threw it on, and padded barefoot around the room. In the dryer, I found my clothes from last night. Still slightly warm. I got dressed quickly, then slipped out of the apartment like a criminal fleeing the scene. What the hell had I done? What had we done? Yes, I'd been drugged. But I'd wanted him too. That desire, twisted and half-buried, had always been there. But Andrew? He could have stopped me. He should have. But he didn't. I hailed a cab and headed for campus, still aching. My phone rang not long after I arrived. I hesitated, then answered. "Where are you?" he asked. I whispered, "At school." "Benjamin." Just hearing his voice brought back a rush of last night, Memories I hadn't yet sorted through. I went to the market early this morning and bought a chicken to make soup. And now you're telling me you ran off to school? I have class this afternoon. He went quiet. Then finally, what time does class end? I'll come pick you up. He was determined to make sure I ate that soup. The truth was, I didn't have class. I had something else to deal with. Ethan Greystone. Whatever happened, he could tell it to the police. I didn't even want to imagine what would have happened if he'd succeeded last night. How sick I would have felt, how violated. I didn't care how ugly this got. I wasn't the one who should be afraid. I was the one who'd been hurt. So why should I feel more ashamed than the person who tried to harm me? That afternoon, the campus was buzzing, with students, school officials, the police, and both Ethan Greystones and my academic advisors trying not to lose their minds. I understood that, technically, no real harm had come to me. But that didn't mean he shouldn't face consequences. As for evidence, maybe the alcohol had metabolized too quickly to trace in my blood, but I'd already covered my bases. Beforehand, I'd contacted the bar owner and said I'd lost something valuable. I asked for a copy of the CCTV footage. I watched it myself. Before I even sat down at the table, the footage clearly showed Ethan slipping something into my drink. I hadn't guarded myself. At least not enough to imagine something like that would happen. The police would take over now. Whether Ethan faced criminal charges or not, this stain would never wash off. He'd talked about applying for graduate school, but now he might not even keep his degree. I didn't regret anything. I wasn't going to apologize either. He needed to pay. By the time everything was wrapped up, I couldn't make it back to campus. When Andrew called, I simply gave him the address of the police station. He showed up minutes later, brow furrowed, posture tense. Was this about last night? He asked immediately. What happened exactly? I kept it short, explaining only what I had to. It's already handled, I said. He didn't press further. He just took me home, although his mood was clearly stormy. I saw the dinner he'd made, he'd gone all out, and I sat down and ate it without a word. That night, I remembered my keys. I showered, ready to collapse early, when someone knocked at the door. I opened it to find Andrew standing outside, his expression stormy. Don't you have anything to say to me? He asked flatly. Andrew, thanks for last night. He didn't look satisfied. That's all. I blinked, unsure what he meant. Andrew stared at me, then said evenly, we slept together. Andrew, don't worry, I told him, honest and soft. I'm not going to cling to you or make a scene. I meant it. I was grateful. His expression shifted, then darkened. He stepped into my apartment and shut the door behind him. So what? You're this nonchalant because it could have been anyone last night? The words hit like a slap. Too sudden. Too cruel. My heart flinched before my brain could. I looked up at him. If it were anyone else, I would have begged them to take me to the hospital. The edge in Andrew's face faltered. He exhaled. Why'd you sneak off this morning without saying a word? He asked, softer now. Why didn't you tell me you were calling the cops? I couldn't understand why he sounded hurt. None of it was his responsibility. Andrew, we just slept together, I reminded him. That's not the same as being in a relationship. He frowned. What do you mean just slept together? I met his eyes. You rejected me when I confessed. You never said you loved me. So we're still just neighbors, aren't we? Andrew, do you think sleeping together means we're dating? I knew he owned a bar. Of all people, shouldn't he understand the rules of casual? Suddenly, Andrew stepped forward and pressed me against the wall. One hand cupped my jaw, calloused fingers firm. So what should I have done, huh? He growled. Should I have dragged you into bed the moment you turned 18? Screwed you until you couldn't think of anyone else? His words were filthy and vivid. My mind went blank. My knees nearly gave out. All I could remember was the way his hands felt last night. Andrew, I murmured, breath shallow. Calm down. You're the one who said there was no future for us. I regret it. Isn't that allowed? He snapped, then leaned in and bit my lower lip. It's only been a few months, and you've already got a parade of men and women sniffing around. Who the hell taught you to play this dirty? Men and women? I stared at him, Andrew, are you jealous? I don't care how many people you've flirted with since starting college, he said darkly. Cut off. I stayed quiet. What does that silence mean? Instead of answering, I asked back, Andrew, do you love me? He went still for a second. Yeah. I do. If I didn't, would I have made you feel that good last night? That's not fair, I muttered. You spanked me. My words were cut off by his mouth on mine again. He kissed me hard, deep, until my legs gave out and he had to carry me to the couch. It didn't go further than kissing, but my head was spinning. He leaned in and whispered in my ear, Benjamin, I'm 8 years older than you. Liking a barely legal boy makes me feel like a creep. You could at least give me some room to screw up my timing. I blinked. Then teasing, so now that I'm 19, I guess it's no longer creepy? Still creepy, he muttered. His thumb dragged along my lower stomach, roughened from years of work, then paused. He smiled down at me. But what about you? You still love me? Those eyes, so dark and unwavering, I couldn't lie to them. I do. Then forget the rest, he said, grazing his teeth along my shoulder. I don't care if any of them had a legitimate shot. From now on, I'm the only one. Warmth bubbled up inside me, unstoppable. I buried my face in his chest, voice muffled. Andrew, it's always only been you. Our relationship began in April of my second semester as a freshman. We kept it steady, quietly but surely. During school breaks, I usually stayed at his place. His bed was big and comfortable. By the second semester of my junior year, I started applying for internships. I bought my first proper suit, same brand as the ones hanging in Andrew Powell's closet. Of course, his suits didn't fit me. He was taller, broader in the shoulders, built differently. I stood in front of the full-length mirror, fiddling with the cufflinks, completely unaware that Andrew was leaning in the doorway. It wasn't until his hand reached over to fix them for me that I noticed him. It was my first time in a formal shirt and trousers. It looked surprisingly good. Polished. Different. Andrew picked out a tie from his own collection and tied it for me. He even found a watch that suited the outfit. There, he said, standing back with a satisfied look. You look good. I'm heading out, I replied, slipping on a pair of gold-rimmed glasses from the table. I was slightly nearsighted, and for the interview, I wanted to look my best. I'll drive you, he offered. No need. I'm meeting a friend at the subway. We're interviewing at the same place, same time slot. Maybe it was the suit, maybe it was my resume, but I landed the internship. A few days later, Andrew bought me more suits. Some of them didn't exactly scream in turn. They were too polished, too extravagant. These'll come in handy for the right occasion, he said. And they did. That night, under soft lighting, I wore a silky white shirt, a charcoal gray vest, fitted black trousers, and those same gold-rimmed glasses. With my cheek resting against Andrew's thigh, I looked up at him, dazed and heated. Like I'd fallen for him all over again, in his suit and tie. Turns out, Andrew had a thing for me in formal wear too. Time passed. I graduated. Andrew opened a second bar. He bought a spacious, high-rise condo, and we moved to a different part of the city. Now in his 30s, Andrew Powell was more attractive than ever. That quiet strength, the tattooed arm, the confidence, it all grew with age. One night, he reached out, cupping my face gently in one inked hand. His gaze lingered, as if memorizing every line of me. When you reach my age, he said suddenly, God knows how dangerous you'll be. Sometimes, he admitted, he hated the 8 years between us. But in his eyes, I saw a light that reached into every corner of the future, illuminating even the days we hadn't lived yet. Those 8 years? They didn't feel like a regret anymore. They felt like fate. Because it was in those years, between his world and mine, that I met the one person I never wanted to let go of. The end.
Thanks for stopping by. Subscribe and hit the notification bell so you don't miss out on any new videos.